How you all doing today? See, the last time I was here, I came in a suit and I got rained on out here with some of you all. You remember that? I also said at that particular time, my wife was still pregnant and you all were supposed to be praying that we had a boy. You remember that? Somebody didn't pray hard enough. So we had a beautiful, beautiful baby girl. That makes 4 girls in my household. If I include my wife, that's 5 females. Let's just say it that way. So there's a lot of estrogen, but I love my girls. And fundamentally, that's one of the reasons that we have to fight, and we have to fight, and we have to fight, is because we cannot pass on to the next generation anything but liberty. Do you all agree with that? There was I think it was a quote by Thomas Paine, and forgive me if I butcher this, but the quote basically says, I prefer peace, but if trouble may come, let it be in my day, so that we don't pass that to the next generation. Do you all agree with that? I think the time has come for us to stop giving ground. The time has come for us to stand and stop compromising. Someone said this before, that I believe this to be just as much a spiritual battle as it is a physical battle. And we need people at the forefront of this battle who understand how to prepare not only for physical battle, but a spiritual one. See, when I read scripture, I read all of it. So that means I don't skip over Ephesians 6. You all know that scripture? Ephesians 6 says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, right? We wrestle against principalities and spiritualness and wickedness in high places. So we have a lot of people right now who are at the forefront who don't understand the battle that we're in. Therefore, they can't present effective solutions to bring us out. I call myself a patriot first, who identifies as a Republican. And let me explain that. Because what that means is I don't view the world through partisan lenses. That means I look to God and country first. And then I align myself with the party who puts God and country first. Now, I believe that to be the Republican Party. But here's the thing. I have a slogan that I say, united we stand. And I have to explain it now. This is the thing that gets on my nerves, that I have to explain what it means to be united. But fundamentally, I will not unite with communism. I will not unite with evil. There are certain things that I won't unite with. What I'm uniting with is all the people who understand that when I talk about policy positions, there's 2 questions that I'll ask myself first. What does Scripture say about it? And then what does our Constitution say about it? If you all agree with that, then we'll be on the same page. I also tell people that values should precede policy. Because we get a lot of people that come up here and they talk policy. They talk policy. They talk policy. They tell you exactly what you want to hear, exactly what they know is going to earn them a vote. But then we wonder why they get up to D.C. and wherever else they are, and for some reason they forgot about that promise they made to the people here. And they start doing whatever it is that they wanted to do. Values determine whether or not that person has the conviction to stand on that policy decision when the sea is rough. And right now, our sea is rough in this country. And we need people that are not afraid to do the right thing because it's the right thing. Not because it's going to be popular, but because it's the right thing to do. Just yesterday, I got back from the border yesterday because I like to see things with my own eyes. We know that we have a crisis at our border, correct? We know right now, and I have a band on right now for Border Patrol. I picked up that while I was down there. But we know that this administration right now is threatening the Border Patrol agents, just like many other people, with their jobs if they choose to make a different decision about their vaccination status. Now, do you think that the caravan that's heading towards our border right now, do you think it's a coincidence that they have a deadline with regard to this vaccine status, that they may face termination, and it just so happens to correspond with this caravan that's coming to the border right now? Do you think that's a coincidence? See, I don't either. I'm well past the point of thinking that this is an administration who's just clueless. Everything that's happening right now is intentional. And if we don't understand that, then we don't understand our enemy. That also means everything that we do must be intentional. Like, I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes, But then I'm going to put my activist hat back on, and we're going to go through just a few action steps I'd love for all of you all to do in preparation for what's coming next. But I wanted to have a conversation first. The school system. We know there's a problem in the school system, correct? Now, here's my take on it. The thing is I refuse to lose an entire next generation because they're inundating, indoctrinating our kids with rhetoric that is anti-God, anti-family, and anti-country. They're not teaching people to have a love, or kids to have a love for this country and to respect God and respect family, respect authority. They're teaching them the complete opposite. So from my perspective, that system needs to be broken. It can be fixed later, but it needs to be broken. Parents need to stand up, which is what they're doing at this particular point. But if you have the capacity to pull your kids out of that broken system, pull them out. If you have the capacity to create co-ops to help people, create co-ops to help teach children so we know exactly what they're being educated with. If you have the capacity to go to private schools, charter schools, anything of that nature, we need to do it because dollars speak. Dollars speak. We have no more time to allow them to indoctrinate an entire generation again. I looked at a map. This was after the last election. I looked at a map of everybody between the ages of 18 to 25 to see which way they voted, and they used colors to display that across the United States map. Do you know what color that map was? You know the conversations I keep having with people now? I keep having conversations with strictly conservative and godly people who are trying to figure out why their kids are liberal. Have you had those conversations? See, the thing is these seeds have been planted all along in the educational system. People thought it was at the college level. The college level was an incubator, right? So all that happened is while they were coming through the educational system down here, they planted all these seeds, but they were still under your umbrella. When they went to college, they're no longer under your umbrella, and now that's the incubator that births all those ideas and all those seeds that were planted all along the way. It is absolutely sickening when you see what is being taught in our educational system. Now, I'm running for U.S. Congress. So you know the only thing you need to hear about from me with regard to the educational system is that federal government doesn't belong in it. See, we need people that understand, and they're running for these positions not because they want to figure out how they can wield the power that they're walking into. They need to understand the limitations of their positions based upon this document right here. You know what this is? This is the Constitution. There are certain enumerated powers that belong with the federal government. And we have to understand also that states are separate and sovereign, correct? The federal government didn't create the states. There were sovereign states that created the federal government and gave it certain enumerated powers. Does the federal government give us our rights? No, our rights are God-given. That means they can't be given nor taken away by a federal government. So the only thing you need to hear with regard to education, like I said, was we need to keep the federal government out of it. We need to return power to the states, right? Because you all can solve the issues. We, the people, control this, and we have to make sure that we return that power to you. Now, I'm going to give you a few things, because I want to, this is kind of my activist hat for just a second. So there's an acronym that I put together. It's called VOTE. And it's 4 things that we can do to prepare for the next election. So the first one stands for voter registration. How many people are helping with voter registration in this crowd? One of the biggest things that we had to do in the state of Florida was close the gap between Republicans and Democrats. The last time I checked it, we were right at 20,000 as a difference. We have to get involved and be engaged with that movement. Now, there's also a lot of people that are moving to this state. Now, we have to understand also that Florida is a closed primary state. Everybody out here knows what that means, correct? Because primaries are very important. Closed primary state, just quickly, means that you have to be registered in the party to participate in the primary. I am challenging someone who has an R behind their name. I wouldn't call them a Republican, but they have an R behind their name. If you are not registered as a Republican, you cannot vote for me. You can't be an independent and vote for Republican. But the time that you get to choose who your representatives are, who is going to actually represent the conservative values that you embody, is in the primary. So we have to make sure people understand that all the people who are moving here, they have to understand that point because they may have come from an open primary state. And I have that conversation almost every day. Now, the next thing is organize at the precinct level. How many of you are precinct committee men and committee women? We need more hands to go up. We need people to be involved at that level, right? So at the precinct committee level, we need you to be involved with these executive committees because they're the people who are supposed to control Republican policy in the area. We just know they're not doing a great job at it. So we need to be there, but when you go there, you're not going there to be subservient to the people who are there. You're going there to impose your will as we the people. Does that make sense? Also, do you know when the election time is next year? Do you know what day it is? Right. So you know the date well ahead of time. How many of y'all requested off from work? How many of y'all are retired? I should have asked that question first. There we go. That's better. So what I'm looking at right now, is a crowd full of poll watchers. Right? I'm looking at people who are going to ensure and hold people accountable to our election process. Because I'm going to get to election integrity here in a second, because election integrity is of the utmost importance. And there's two things that I tell people about election integrity. We got to make sure that we understand what happened in 2020, 100%. And the only way that happens, in my opinion, is with forensic audits. That's because we have to also, just as much we have to make sure that there was what happened in 2020, we have to restore the faith of the American people in the election process. And that's something completely different. So we have to do both of those things. So remember what I said. Most of this crowd was retired. So that means during the elections process, you're poll watchers, you're out in front of these precincts, you're helping us understand exactly what's happening and holding people accountable. You've put together teams and task force, so if you see something wrong, we know exactly where it's happening, when it's happening, and we can mobilize to correct it ASAP. The next thing is empowering your representatives. Don't wait to complain to your representatives about what they do wrong. Be proactive and tell them what you want. Tell them what you want. And then understand with regard to the donation level, I have to reframe how I look at donations. We like to think about things in terms of our individual districts. When you're talking about U.S. Congress, you're talking about Senate, things of that nature, when you send people to D.C., does it matter? There's one vote that they get, right? Does it matter whether they live in Naples, whether they live in Sarasota, whether they live in Tallahassee? Does it matter with regard to what they're going to vote in D.C.? So you have to find people, when you're talking about those types of races, congressional, Senate, you have to find people that embody the principles that you embody, that you feel are important, and you have to support them regardless of where they are. Because we need to send more patriots to D.C. so we can hold people accountable. Now, when you get down to the other levels, we're talking about school boards, we're talking about commissioner, we're talking about city council. Those types of things are more local. And you need to find, when you get down to the donation levels there, we need to focus on the people that are in your prospective districts with regard to your donation cycles there. So just think about those things in terms of what we're going to be doing to prepare for 2022. Now, that's out the way. I'm going to go back just a few seconds. So when I was at the border, we all know what's happening at the border, but it's surreal to see it. So while we were there, I was talking to some DPS agents, and what they were telling me about, and this is what blew my mind, part of what blew my mind, it was about crash houses, is what they call them. So we know the people that are coming across the border, they have wristbands. Those wristbands have prices on them. So now you're like valuing, it's like cattle. You're like valuing people's lives or freedom based upon the amount that's on that wristband. Now, the thing is our border is porous, and we've tied the hands of our Border Patrol agents with regard to the people that are coming across the border, but somehow the cartel is still monitoring this, and if people cross the border who do not have a wrist tag, they're kidnapping them. This is happening on American soil, and they stick them in what they call crash houses until they blackmail someone to send them the money to pay for this person's freedom, if you will. So you have Border Patrol agents who are monitoring our border. You have other agents who are there trying to investigate to figure out how we have the cartel basically operating on American soil with these crash houses and how they're able to monitor our border more than we seemingly are. Also, the reason why immigration is not just a problem of Texas and Arizona is because they are shipping these people all across the US. So while I was in the airport, it was blatant. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. So we saw folders, and the folders have identifying numbers on them. There was multiple people, multiple families. They have bags, they have supplies, they have these folders, and they are flying them all over the country. Now, we have had, I think it's 1.7 million at this particular point encounters that we know of at the border. So we're talking about millions of people being brought into this country illegally, and now we have an administration that is talking about giving them $500,000. There are some Americans that don't have $500,000 saved up in their bank account. Now you're making it more advantageous to be illegal than to be an American citizen. I don't think that's acceptable in America. Then I have to sit here and I have to watch people. HHS, the guy, they sent out a notification the other day that said he was the first female admiral. And I'm sitting here, I have four girls. I have four daughters. So this is very hard for me, and I'm wondering where all the feminists and the women groups are at this particular point. And then I get a lot of heat because I refuse. This is supposed to be based in science, right? For me, it's very simple. You have an XX chromosomal pair or an XY chromosomal pair. That tells me exactly who you are. End of story. So you get mad at me because I don't want to lie to myself, lie to my kids, lie to anybody else about what I'm actually seeing. I don't know what time we're living in right now, but what I do know is we need to activate people of faith, because there was a lot of evangelicals that didn't show up to vote last time. That cannot happen this time. We need them on the front lines, speaking biblical truth, voting your biblical truth, and not taking anything from anybody. Can I count on you all to do that? So you very rarely ever see me without a constitution, right? So one of the things that I do believe is that there is a path back in this country. We have to fix what happened in 2020 before 2022. And I believe 2022 is a very pivotal moment in this country, because up to 2022, we can still take this back with this document and the Bible. After 2022, my fear is that it will require much, much more. That's why this is so pivotal, and we need everybody involved. Everybody has a role. Their role is different. Your role looks different from mine. Now, I have elected at this particular point to put myself and my family on the front line and take arrows. And the last time I was here, I told you all that our family had been turned into DCF. At this particular point, they blamed us for our kids being malnourished, developmentally underdeveloped, and they said we locked them in hot cars. Now, since that case has been finished and dismissed, however, we had to go through and traverse through that. And in that moment, I had to have a conversation with my wife, because it's one thing to attack me, it's one thing to attack her. Most people are afraid of me, and they don't understand that I'm merely tempering her. All right? Her dad's Jamaican, her mom is Sicilian, like she's a firecracker. But it's one thing to attack us, it's a whole nother thing to attack our kids. And that's the culture that we're living in right now. If we don't agree on something, they seek to destroy everything that there is to know about you. So they went and they questioned our business associates, they questioned our friends, they questioned our neighbors. They tried to embarrass us in any way they could. The one thing they don't understand about patriots is that when you come at me like that, I don't run, I lean in. That is the way that I was raised. I also am not going to punt the ball down the field. This is not hot potato. I'm not going to pass that hot potato to my kids. So all you're doing right now is solidifying why it is that we're running and why it is that we will not lose, why it is that we will stand, and it will be over my dead body that I pass anything but liberty to my 4 kids and to the next generation. So when I talk about the Constitution and I talk about rights, and we talk about the Second Amendment, I see Second Amendment flags right here, so now it's kind of beefing something up. But I made a deal with my wife that every kid that we had, and there's someone back there with guns, every boy that we had, I was going to buy one weapon. Every girl, I was going to buy two. So you at least know that I have 6 weapons. I just had a baby girl, and I'm due for 2 more. So I got to talk to somebody and fill my quota. But the Second Amendment is one of the only reasons that we still have an opportunity in this country to fight. Because other countries like Cuba, Venezuela, and all these other communist countries, they don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have the ability to fight like we do. We have that ability. So when I talk about not infringing on that Second Amendment, you don't touch it because that Second Amendment protects all the rest of them. And I know I'm talking to a group of people who understand that point. Earlier, we had people stand up with regard to the military. I'm so appreciative. I was talking to an admiral the other day, and I said, you know what? You all stood up for us and for our freedoms on foreign soil. The least that we can do as Americans is stand up for them on American soil. So pick up your phones, talk to your state reps. You're in Florida. Talk to your state reps, talk to your state senators. Governor DeSantis basically led the way in calling an emergency session to protect the jobs and protect people and the freedoms in Florida. But it's still up to that legislative body not to pass something that doesn't have any teeth, but to pass something that actually protects the liberty of citizens right here in Florida. That is happening. That is an active step that we all need to do yesterday. Pick up the phone, pressure them, get them to do what they are supposed to be doing anyway. So I'm not gonna stay up here too long. I'm gonna go ahead and close this thing out. But, and I see you looking at me, so that was a look right there. Okay, he said he was gonna give me a look when I was done. So he gave me a look. But anyway, so just keep in mind, keep this stuff in mind. There are people right now that I believe God is calling to the fourfold. The only reason I am in this right now is because I was called to it. I did not have political aspirations. I love this country and I love God. I love people. And I hate to see the attack that we're seeing right now on all those things and on the family fabric in this country. So just know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I will fight, I will keep fighting, I will stand, and I will not kneel to anybody but God, and I will represent your values in D.C. Thank you very much. Drew Montez Clark, District 25, Florida.